Marcus slammed his fist against the steering wheel so hard the horn blared across the empty highway. 23 minutes late. The receptionist wouldn't even look at him. Mr. Harrison doesn't see late candidates. Policy. 3 years of struggling. 47 rejection letters. One last chance gone. All because he stopped to help a woman he'd never see again. His phone rang. His mother's voice cut through like a blade. "You threw away everything for a stranger. Your father would be ashamed." Marcus sat in that parking lot, staring at his daughter's hand-drawn card, and felt his world collapse. What he didn't know was that the woman in that broken-down Mercedes was already searching for him. Drop a comment with your city. Let's see how far this story travels. The alarm never went off. Marcus Chen's eyes snapped open at 5:47 a.m., and for 3 full seconds he couldn't breathe. The interview was at 9. He'd set 4 alarms. None of them had made a sound. He threw off the thin blanket and hit the floor running. His feet were cold against the worn carpet as he stumbled toward the bathroom, already calculating shower 5 minutes. Shave 3. Get dressed 10. Wake Sophie. Make her breakfast, drop her at Mrs. Patterson's by 7:30. He could still make it. He had to make it. In the bathroom mirror, Marcus barely recognized himself. The man staring back had shadows under his eyes and a jawline sharper than it used to be. He'd lost 20 pounds in the last 8 months, not from working out, from skipping dinners so his daughter could have seconds. His hands were shaking as he reached for his razor. "Get it together," he whispered. "You get 1 shot, 1. The suit was hanging on the back of the bedroom door where he'd placed it 3 days ago. He'd had it dry cleaned with money he couldn't afford to spend. It was the same suit he'd worn to Maya's funeral 2 years ago. The same suit he'd worn to his last real job interview back when he still believed hard work was enough. The jacket hung loose on his shoulders now. The pants needed a belt, cinched 2 notches tighter, but it was all he had. Marcus pulled the tie from the hanger navy blue with thin silver stripes and stood in front of the mirror, trying to remember how to make a proper Windsor knot. His hands wouldn't stop trembling. Sophie was still asleep when he pushed open her door. She was curled up under a faded purple comforter, clutching a stuffed elephant with 1 ear missing. Her dark hair spread across the pillow like her mother's used to. Marcus knelt beside the bed and touched her shoulder gently. "Hey, sweetheart. Time to wake up." Sophie stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment she looked confused. Then she saw his suit, and her whole face changed. "Daddy, is today the job thing?" Marcus smiled. It was the first real smile he'd managed in weeks. "Yeah, kiddo. Today's the job thing." Sophie sat up so fast, she nearly headbutted him. "You're gonna get it. I know you are." "How do you know?" "Because you're the smartest daddy in the whole world." She threw her arms around his neck and squeezed. "And because I made you something." She scrambled out of bed and ran to her small desk, pulling open the drawer. She came back with a folded piece of construction paper and handed it to him like it was made of gold. Marcus opened it carefully. It was a drawing. Crayon on pink paper. A tall building with lots of windows, and next to it, a stick figure man in a blue suit holding hands with a smaller stick figure girl. Above the building in Sophie's careful 7-year-old handwriting, "Daddy's building." Marcus's throat tightened. "When you get the job," Sophie said, "you'll build beautiful things again, right? Like you used to with Mommy." He pulled her into a hug so she wouldn't see his eyes. "Yeah, baby, like I used to." Mrs. Patterson lived 3 blocks away. She was 72 years old, a retired schoolteacher, and the only person Marcus could afford for childcare, which was to say she refused to take his money. "You'll pay me back when you're on your feet," she'd said 6 months ago. "Until then, Sophie and I will have our adventures." Marcus walked Sophie to the door at 7:15, holding her hand the whole way. "You be good for Mrs. Patterson, okay?" "I'm always good." "I know you are." He knelt down to her level. "I might be late picking you up today. The interview might take a while." Sophie nodded seriously. Because they're gonna want to talk to you for a long time. Because you're so smart. That's the plan. She hugged him one more time, then ran inside, waving over her shoulder. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway, her kind eyes taking in Marcus's suit, his nervous energy. "You're going to do great," she said. "Thank you for everything. Go, before you're late." Marcus was on the highway by 7:35. The interview was at Preston and Associates Architecture, 45 minutes away if traffic cooperated. He'd mapped 3 different routes the night before. He had a backup tie in the glove compartment, a printed copy of his resume on the passenger seat. Everything was planned. His phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. He glanced at the screen. Mom. His finger hovered over the ignore button. Then, against his better judgment, he answered. Marcus. His mother's voice filled the car like cold water. Are you on your way? Yes, Mom. I'm on the highway. Good. Because this is it. You understand that, don't you? This is your last chance. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure you do. I'm not sure you understand what's at stake here. Sophie needs stability. She needs a father who can provide for her. She needs... I know what she needs. Then don't mess this up. His mother's voice sharpened. Your father never would have let things get this bad. He never would have... Dad's dead, Mom. The words came out harder than he intended. He's been dead for 15 years. I can't be him. I can only be me. Silence on the line. Then quieter. I just want you to succeed, Marcus. I want Sophie to have the life she deserves. So do I. Then prove it. Today. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the road ahead, his jaw tight, his mother's words echoing in his skull. Your father never would have let things get this bad. She'd been saying variations of that his whole life. After he chose architecture over medicine. After he married Maya instead of the more suitable women she'd introduced him to. After he quit his job at the prestigious firm to take care of Sophie when Maya got sick. And especially after Maya died and everything fell apart. He'd been applying for jobs for 8 months, 47 applications, 47 rejections. He was either overqualified or underexperienced, or there was just someone better. But Preston and Associates had called him back. They'd liked his portfolio. They'd scheduled an interview. This was it. His last chance before the savings ran out completely, before the landlord stopped accepting excuses. Before he had to tell Sophie they were moving again, this time to somewhere even smaller, even farther from her school, even farther from the life Maya had wanted for her. He couldn't fail. Not today. At 8:15, the highway turned into a parking lot. Marcus watched the brake lights stretch ahead of him as far as he could see, and felt something cold settle in his stomach. No. He turned on the radio, scanning for traffic reports. Major accident on I-95 northbound near exit 47. Expect delays of up to 90 minutes. 90 minutes. The interview was in 45. Marcus's hands were slick on the steering wheel. He checked his mirrors, checked the GPS, checked everything twice. There had to be another way. Exit 44 was half a mile ahead. If he could get there, he could take the back roads through the industrial district. It would add 20 minutes to the drive, but it would be better than sitting here for an hour and a half. He merged right, cutting across 2 lanes, ignoring the honking horns. The exit ramp was clogged, but moving. He inched forward, checking the clock obsessively. 8:23. 8:27. 8:31. Finally, he was off the highway. The industrial road stretched ahead of him, empty and gray, under a sky that was starting to darken. Rain was coming. He could smell it in the air. Marcus accelerated. 55. 60. The speed limit was 45, but he didn't care. He was going to make it. He had to make it. He almost didn't see the car. It was a silver Mercedes pulled halfway onto the gravel shoulder hazard lights blinking weakly. The hood was up, and standing beside it, arms wrapped around herself, was a woman in a business suit looking more out of place on this forgotten stretch of road than anything Marcus had ever seen. His foot hovered over the gas pedal. "Keep driving," his mother's voice said in his head. "You can't afford to stop. Sophie needs this. You need this." The woman looked up as his car approached. Even from this distance, Marcus could see she was scared. Her hair was coming loose from its careful arrangement. Her mascara was smudged like she'd been crying. Keep driving. He was past her now. The road ahead was clear. He had 23 minutes. If he pushed it, he could still. Marcus hit the brakes. The car skidded slightly on the loose gravel as he pulled over. He sat there for a moment, his heart pounding, knowing he was making a mistake, knowing he was about to throw away everything. Then he got out. The woman turned toward him, startled. For a second, she looked like she might run. "Hey," Marcus called, keeping his distance. "Are you okay?" She studied him warily. She was older than he'd first thought, maybe late 40s, with sharp cheekbones and intelligent eyes. The kind of face that belonged in a boardroom, not on the side of a deserted road. "My car died." Her voice was steadier than he expected. "It just stopped. I've been here for almost 30 minutes. No one would stop." "Did you call someone?" "My phone's dead." Marcus glanced at the Mercedes. Expensive, brand new. The kind of car that shouldn't break down on a random Tuesday morning. I'm not some kind of, I can show you my license if you want. I have a daughter. I'm just trying to help." Something in his voice must have convinced her because her shoulders dropped slightly. "Do you know anything about cars?" Marcus walked toward the Mercedes, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He looked under the hood, his eyes scanning the engine compartment. It took him less than a minute to spot the problem. "Your battery cable came loose. See here," he pointed. "Happens sometimes with new cars. The connections aren't seated properly from the factory. Can you fix it?" Marcus checked his watch. 8:41. He had 19 minutes. The interview location was at least 25 minutes away. If he fixed this, he would be late. If he was late, they wouldn't see him. He knew how these firms worked. He knew the policy. But if he left this woman here alone, with no phone on a road where no one stopped— "Yeah," Marcus said. "I can fix it." He went back to his car and grabbed the small toolkit he kept in the trunk. His hands moved quickly, tightening the cable, checking the connections. The woman stood nearby, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "You're going to ruin your suit," she said. Marcus looked down at his sleeves already smudged with grease. He almost laughed. "Probably." "Where were you headed before you stopped?" "Job interview." Her face changed. "When?" 9 o'clock. She looked at her watch, then back at him. Her eyes widened. "You should go, right now. I can wait for—" "It's almost done." Marcus gave the cable one final twist. "Try starting it." The woman hesitated, then slid into the driver's seat. She turned the key. The engine roared to life. She stepped back out, and for the first time, she smiled. It transformed her whole face. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." "Someone else would have come along." "No." She shook her head. "They wouldn't. I've been standing here for 30 minutes. You're the only one who stopped." Marcus wiped his hands on an old rag from the toolkit. The grease didn't come off completely. He was going to show up to the most important interview of his life with stained hands and a rumpled suit. "Can I pay you something for your trouble?" "No, it's fine." "At least let me give you a ride." "I have my car." Marcus nodded toward his aging Honda. "And I really need to go." The woman reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "Take this, please, if there's ever anything I can do." But Marcus was already backing away, shaking his head. "I'm glad I could help. Drive safe." He got into his car and pulled onto the road without looking at the card. He tossed it onto the passenger seat next to his resume and pressed the accelerator. 8:54. The GPS said he was 29 minutes away. He wasn't going to make it. Marcus arrived at Preston and Associates at 9:23. He burst through the glass doors out of breath, his tie askew, grease stains visible on his cuffs. The lobby was all marble and chrome, the kind of space designed to make people feel small. The receptionist looked up. Her expression said everything. Name, Marcus Chen. I had an interview at 9, with Mr. Harrison. I know I'm late, but there was an emergency on the highway and Mr. Harrison doesn't see candidates who arrive late. Her voice was flat, rehearsed. It's company policy. Please, if you could just tell him, I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do. Marcus stood there, staring at the polished floors, at the glass walls, at the elevators that led to offices he would never see. He wanted to argue. He wanted to beg. He wanted to explain about Sophie, about the rent, about the woman on the side of the road who needed help. But he knew it wouldn't matter. Is there someone else I could speak with? Anyone? The receptionist's eyes flicked to the security guard by the door, then back to Marcus. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. He made it to his car before the shaking started. Marcus sat behind the wheel, staring at nothing, his hands trembling so badly he couldn't grip the steering wheel. He tried to breathe, in and out, in and out. His phone buzzed. He didn't need to look. He knew who it was. He answered anyway. Well, his mother's voice was sharp, expectant. I didn't get it. Silence. Long and heavy and worse than any words. What happened? I was late. Late? The word came out like a slap. Marcus, how could you be late? This was the most important day of your life. I know. Then what happened? Marcus closed his eyes. I stopped to help someone. Another silence. This one felt like the air being sucked out of the car. You stopped! His mother's voice dropped low and cold. You stopped to help someone. On the day of your interview. The interview that was supposed to save your family. She was stranded. Alone. Her phone was dead and no one else would... I don't care. The explosion came so fast, Marcus flinched. I don't care if she was the Queen of England. You had one job today, Marcus. One job. And you threw it away for a stranger who probably doesn't even remember your name. Mom. Your father would never have done this. Your father understood priorities. He understood sacrifice. He built a life for this family because he knew what mattered. I know what matters. Do you... His mother's voice cracked. Do you really? Because from where I'm standing, all I see is a man who can't keep a job, can't keep a home, can't provide for his own daughter. And now you tell me you threw away your last chance because you wanted to play hero for some woman on the side of the road. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. I made a choice. You made a mistake. Again. Just like you always do. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the parking lot of Preston and Associates for a long time. He stared at Sophie's drawing on the passenger seat. Daddy's building. The stick figure family. The crooked windows. He thought about the woman on the side of the road. The way she'd looked at him when the engine started. The relief in her eyes. He'd done the right thing, so why did it feel like he'd just destroyed everything? That night Marcus picked up Sophie from Mrs. Patterson's house and made her dinner. Spaghetti with butter and parmesan. It was all he had left in the kitchen. Did you get the job, Daddy? The question hit him like a punch to the chest. Sophie was looking up at him with those big brown eyes so full of trust, so full of faith. Marcus forced a smile. Not that one, sweetheart. But I'm going to keep trying. Sophie nodded, satisfied. That's okay. You'll get the next one. How do you know? Because you're my daddy. She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And daddies always figure it out. After she was asleep, Marcus sat on the couch in the dark. He pulled the business card from his jacket pocket, the one the woman had given him, the one he'd tossed aside without looking. He turned it over in his hands. Grace Mitchell, founder and CEO. Mitchell Design Group. Marcus stared at the name. Mitchell Design Group. He knew that firm. Everyone in architecture knew that firm. They'd designed the new children's hospital downtown, the sustainable housing development that had won international awards, the museum that had been featured in every design magazine for the past 2 years. Grace Mitchell was one of the most influential architects in the country, and Marcus had just changed her tire on the side of the road. He looked at the card for a long time. Then he put it on the coffee table and stared at the ceiling. It didn't matter who she was. She'd offered to help, but people always said that. They never meant it. Tomorrow, she'd forget his name, forget his face, forget the man who'd ruined his only suit to fix her car. Marcus closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd have to find another job. Something. Anything. The rent was due in 2 weeks and he had $347 in his bank account. He couldn't afford to dream anymore. He couldn't afford to hope. The next morning, Marcus was back on the job boards by 5 a.m. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open, the screen casting pale light across his face in the darkness. Sophie wouldn't wake up for another 2 hours. He had time. He scrolled through the listings. Senior architect. 5 years minimum experience. Junior designer. Master's degree required. Project manager. Must be willing to relocate. He applied to 7 positions before Sophie's alarm went off. He knew he wouldn't hear back from any of them. "Daddy!" Sophie appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you up so early?" "Just doing some work, sweetheart. Go get dressed. I'll make breakfast." He made her oatmeal with the last of the brown sugar. She ate it without complaint, even though he knew she preferred pancakes. She never complained about anything anymore. Sometimes that worried him more than if she did. "Mrs. Patterson said you looked sad yesterday," Sophie said between bites. Marcus looked up. "What?" "When you picked me up. She said you looked like you needed a hug." "Mrs. Patterson worries too much. I gave you a hug anyway. Did it help?" Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "It always helps." After he dropped Sophie at school, Marcus drove to the unemployment office. He sat in a plastic chair for 3 hours, filled out forms, answered questions from a woman who looked almost as tired as he felt. "Any job preferences, Mr. Chen?" "I'm an architect. I have a degree from E. I meant realistic preferences." She didn't look up from her computer. "We don't have architecture positions. We have warehouse work, retail, food service, construction." Marcus swallowed his pride. It went down like broken glass. "Whatever's available." She handed him a printout. 3 addresses. 3 opportunities to become someone he never thought he'd be. "Good luck, Mr. Chen." The first warehouse wasn't hiring anymore. The second wanted someone with forklift certification. The third was a construction site on the south side of the city, a half-built apartment complex surrounded by chain-link fencing and mud. Marcus parked his car and walked toward the trailer marked "Office." His dress shoes sank into the soft ground with every step. A man in a hard hat looked up from a clipboard. He was somewhere in his 60s, with weathered skin and hands that looked like they'd built half the city. "Help you?" "I'm looking for work. The unemployment office sent me." The man looked him up and down, took in the dress shirt, the clean hands, the shoes that had no business being on a job site. "You ever worked construction before?" "No." "You know how to swing a hammer. I can learn." The man studied him for a long moment. "What'd you do before this?" "I was an architect." Something shifted in the man's expression. Not pity exactly, something closer to recognition. "Name's Ray," he said. "I'm the site supervisor. Pay is $18 an hour cash at the end of each week. We start at 6, finish when the work's done. You show up late, you don't get paid. You show up drunk, you don't come back." "We clear." "We're clear." Ray handed him a hard hat. "Be here tomorrow at 5:30. Wear boots if you have them. Those shoes won't last an hour." Marcus didn't have boots. He stopped at a thrift store on the way home and bought a pair for $12. They were scuffed and worn, but they fit. That night he told Sophie he'd gotten a job. The building job. Her face lit up. The one where you get to design things? Marcus hesitated. A different job. Just for now, until the right one comes along. What kind of job? I'm going to help build things. With my hands. Sophie considered this. Like Legos. Yeah, sweetheart. Kind of like Legos. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Marcus wished he could be. The first week nearly broke him. He woke at 4:30 every morning to drop Sophie at Mrs. Patterson's house before the sun came up. The older woman never complained, just opened her door and welcomed Sophie inside with hot chocolate and cartoons. You don't have to do this, Marcus said on the third morning. I can find someone else, someone I can pay. Mrs. Patterson shook her head. That little girl is the brightest part of my day. You'd be doing me a disservice to take her away. I'll pay you back, when things get better. I know you will. She patted his arm. Now go. You'll be late. The construction site was a different world. Marcus hauled cinder blocks until his arms screamed. He mixed concrete until his back seized up. He climbed scaffolding in the August heat and learned to ignore the way his head spun when he looked down. The other workers didn't know what to make of him at first. He was older than most of them, quieter, clearly out of place. But he showed up every day. He did what he was told. He didn't complain. By the end of the first week, his hands were covered in blisters. By the end of the second, the blisters had hardened into calluses. Ray found him during lunch break on Friday, sitting alone by the fence eating a sandwich he'd made from the last of the bread. You're not what I expected, Ray said, lowering himself onto an overturned bucket. Marcus looked up. What did you expect? Figured you'd quit after the first day. Most guys like you do. Guys like me. College guys. White-collar guys. Guys who think they're too good for this kind of work. Marcus took a bite of his sandwich. It was dry, tasteless. I'm not too good for anything. I have a daughter. She needs to eat. Ray nodded slowly. How old? 7. I got 3. All grown now. One's a teacher. One's a nurse. One's one's still figuring it out. He chuckled. They never stop being your kids, though, no matter how old they get. No, they don't. Ray stood up, brushing off his jeans. You're doing good work, Chen. Keep it up. It wasn't much, but it was something. Marcus's mother called on Sunday evening. He was sitting on the couch, every muscle in his body aching, watching Sophie draw at the kitchen table. He almost didn't answer. But he knew if he didn't, she'd just keep calling. Marcus. Hi, Mom. I've been trying to reach you all week. I've been working. Working where? Did you find something in architecture? Marcus closed his eyes. Construction. The silence that followed was worse than anything she could have said. Construction, his mother repeated finally. You have a degree from Cornell. You worked at Morrison & Associates for 6 years, and now you're doing construction. It pays the bills. Barely, I'm sure. It's honest work, Mom. Your father. Don't. The word came out sharper than Marcus intended. Don't tell me what Dad would have done. Dad isn't here. I am. And I'm doing the best I can. Your best isn't good enough. His mother's voice cracked. It hasn't been good enough since Maya died. You fell apart, Marcus. You gave up. And now look at you. Look at what you've become. I'm still Sophie's father. That hasn't changed. For how long? How long before you can't make rent? How long before she ends up in foster care because you couldn't hold your life together? The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He gripped the phone so hard, his knuckles went white. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. You can't promise that. I would die before I let that happen. Then start acting like it. His mother's voice hardened. Stop making excuses. Stop helping strangers on the side of the road when your own family is falling apart. Start being the man your daughter needs you to be." The line went dead. Marcus sat in the silence, his mother's words echoing in his head. He looked at Sophie still drawing at the table, humming softly to herself. She had no idea how close they were to losing everything. He would do better. He had to do better. The weeks blurred together. Marcus worked construction 6 days a week, sometimes 7. He took every overtime shift Ray offered. He learned to frame walls and lay concrete and wire electrical outlets. His body adapted. His mind did not. Every night he came home exhausted, covered in dust and sweat, and found Sophie waiting for him. She'd tell him about her day at school, show him her drawings, ask him questions he was too tired to answer properly. "Daddy, when are you going to build your own building again?" "Soon, sweetheart." "When?" "I don't know. Soon." She stopped asking after a while. The bills kept coming. Electric, water, the credit card he'd used to pay for Sophie's school supplies, the medical bills from Maya's final months that he was still paying off one agonizing installment at a time. The landlord called on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus was on his lunch break eating leftover rice from a plastic container. "Mr. Chen, this is Frank Morrison, about your rent." Marcus's stomach dropped. "I know I'm behind. I'm going to have it by the end of the month." "You said that last month." "I know, but this time..." "This time what?" "This time is different." Frank sighed. "Look, I'm not a monster. I know you've had a hard time, but I've got bills too. If you can't pay by the 1st, I'm going to have to start eviction proceedings." Marcus leaned against the chain-link fence, his legs suddenly weak. "How much do I owe?" 2 months, plus late fees. Comes to $3,800. $3,800. He'd make maybe $2,000 this month if he worked every available shift. It wasn't enough. It was nowhere near enough. "Can I have until the 15th? A long pause. "The 15th. Not a day later, and I'm going to need at least half up front." "Thank you. Thank you, I'll figure it out." He hung up and stared at his phone. Half of $3,800 was $1,900. He had $400 in his bank account. He needed $1,500 in 2 weeks. Marcus went back to work. He hauled materials. He climbed scaffolding. He didn't say a word to anyone for the rest of the day. That night, after Sophie was asleep, he sat down with his laptop and started selling. Maya's jewelry went first. The necklace he'd given her for their 5th anniversary. The earrings from their honeymoon. The engagement ring he'd been saving for Sophie. He posted them on 3 different websites and sold them all within 48 hours. It brought in $800. Then the furniture. The leather chair Maya had loved. The antique lamp from her grandmother. The kitchen table they'd bought together when they moved into their first apartment. Sophie noticed. "Daddy, where's the chair?" "I sold it." "Why?" "Because we needed the money, sweetheart." She looked at him with those big, serious eyes. "Are we poor?" Marcus's heart cracked. "No, baby. We're going through a hard time right now. But it won't last forever. I promise." "Mommy liked that chair." "I know." Sophie didn't say anything else. She just walked to her room and closed the door. Marcus stood in the empty living room surrounded by the spaces where their life used to be, and felt like the worst father in the world. By the 1st of the month, he had $2,200. He gave it all to Frank Morrison and promised the rest within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Chen. That's all I can give you." "I understand." Marcus went back to work. He picked up shifts at a warehouse on his days off, loading trucks from midnight to 6 a.m., then heading straight to the construction site. He slept 4 hours a night, sometimes 3. His body started to give out. He was up on the scaffolding on a Wednesday afternoon when the dizziness hit. One moment he was fine, the next the world was spinning, and his hands couldn't grip the railing. "Chen." Ray's voice came from somewhere far away. "Chen, you okay?" Marcus managed to climb down before his legs gave out. He sat on a stack of lumber, his head between his knees trying to breathe. Ray crouched in front of him. "When's the last time you ate?" Marcus tried to remember. "Yesterday, the day before." "I don't know." "Go home." "I can't. I need the hours." "You're no good to me dead." Ray's voice was gruff, but not unkind. "Go home, Chen. Get some rest. Eat something. Come back tomorrow." Marcus wanted to argue. He wanted to explain about the rent, about Sophie, about everything that was riding on every hour he worked. But he couldn't form the words. He went home. Sophie was at school. The apartment was empty. Marcus sat on the floor, they didn't have a couch anymore, and stared at the wall. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Haven't heard from you. Call me." He didn't call. Instead, he pulled out the business card he'd kept in his wallet for 3 weeks. The one he'd been too proud to use. The one he'd told himself meant nothing. Grace Mitchell, founder and CEO, Mitchell Design Group. He stared at the card for a long time. Then he put it away and went to sleep. The next morning, Ray called him into the office. "Got some news," Ray said. "We're moving to a new site next week. Big project downtown. Corporate building. Lots of money, lots of pressure. I need my best guys." "I'll be there." "I know you will." Ray handed him a piece of paper. "This is the address. We start Monday." Marcus looked at the paper. The address was in the financial district, surrounded by glass towers and expensive restaurants. A different world from the apartment complex they'd been building. "What's the project?" 20-story office building. Some tech company headquarters." Ray shrugged. "Don't know the details. Don't care. All I know is they're paying top dollar and they want it done fast." "I'll be there," Marcus said again. He worked the rest of the week like a man possessed. Every shift, every hour, every minute. The second payment to Frank Morrison was due in 5 days, and he was still $800 short. On Friday night, Marcus counted his cash 3 times. $1,812. He needed $1,900. He was $88 short. He called the landlord. "Frank, I have $1,800. I just need a few more days." "Chen, I stuck my neck out for you. I gave you extra time. If you can't pay, I can't help you anymore. Please. I have a 7-year-old daughter. If we get evicted..." "I'm sorry. I really am. But business is business." The line went dead. Marcus sat on the floor of his empty apartment and did something he hadn't done since Maya's funeral. He cried. The next morning, Mrs. Patterson knocked on his door. She took one look at his face and walked inside without asking. She sat down on the floor next to him. There were no chairs left, and took his hands in hers. "Tell me." Marcus told her everything. The interview, the rent, the money, the eviction notice, everything. When he finished, Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Marcus opened it. Inside was a stack of bills. He counted them. $900. "I can't take this." "You can, and you will." Mrs. Patterson. "That little girl is the closest thing I have to a grandchild." Her voice was firm. "If you think I'm going to let her lose her home because of $88, you don't know me at all." Marcus's throat tightened. "I'll pay you back." "I know you will. When you're ready, not before." He paid Frank Morrison that afternoon, every penny he owed. "We're square, Chen. But next month..." "I know. I'll have it." He had no idea how. But he'd figure it out. He always figured it out. Monday came, and Marcus drove downtown to the new construction site. The building was massive. 20 stories of steel and glass, still mostly skeleton, rising above the city like a monument to ambition. There were security guards at the entrance and expensive cars in the parking lot. Marcus found Ray near the main trailer and got his assignment. 3rd floor drywall installation. Hard work, but indoor at least. He was carrying sheets of drywall when he heard the commotion below. "Executive tour," someone muttered. "Big shots coming through." Marcus didn't look. He didn't care about big shots. He cared about finishing his work and getting paid. But then, Ray's voice crackled over the radio. "All crew heads up. Executive team on site. Stay professional." Marcus kept working. He had 3 more sheets to move. The elevator opened behind him. Voices filled the space. Expensive voices. The kind that belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. He reached for the next sheet of drywall. And then someone said his name. "Marcus." He turned. She was standing there in a charcoal blazer and black heels, looking exactly like she had on the side of the road, except now she was surrounded by men in suits, and everyone was looking at her like she owned the world. Because she did. Or at least she owned this building. Grace Mitchell stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. "It's you." Marcus set the drywall down slowly. "Ms. Mitchell." "I've been looking for you." She stepped forward, ignoring the confused executives behind her. "For 3 weeks. I didn't get your last name. I didn't know how to find you." Marcus didn't know what to say. He was standing there in dusty work clothes, sweat on his forehead, drywall dust in his hair. And she was looking at him like he was the most important person in the room. "I need to speak with you," Grace said. "Privately." One of the executives frowned. "Ms. Mitchell, we're on a schedule. This is more important." Her voice left no room for argument. "I'll catch up." The executives exchanged glances. Then they moved toward the elevator, leaving Marcus and Grace alone. She didn't speak for a moment, just looked at him, taking in the hard hat, the work boots, the calluses on his hands. "The interview," she said finally. "The one you missed because of me." "What happened?" Marcus met her eyes. "They wouldn't see me. Company policy. And now you're here, working construction." "I needed a job." Grace shook her head slowly. "I've been thinking about you every day since that morning, about what you gave up to help me. I was on my way to a board meeting that would determine the future of my company. If I'd missed it..." She stopped. "But you didn't know that. You didn't know anything about me. You just saw someone who needed help and you stopped." "Anyone would have done the same." "No." Grace's voice was sharp. "They wouldn't. I stood on that road for 30 minutes. Dozens of cars passed. You were the only one who stopped." Marcus didn't have a response for that. Grace reached into her blazer and pulled out a folder. "I made some calls. The position at Preston and Associates, it's still open. And I happen to know their CEO quite well." She held the folder out to him. Marcus looked at it but didn't take it. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this?" Grace's expression softened. "Because kindness matters. Because sacrifice matters. Because a man who would give up everything to help a stranger deserves a chance to get it back." "I didn't help you for a reward." "I know. That's exactly why you deserve one." Marcus took the folder. Inside was a printed email, an invitation to interview at Preston and Associates. The same position. The same company that had turned him away. "Thursday," Grace said. 10 o'clock. Don't be late." Marcus stared at the paper, his hands trembling. "There's one condition," Grace continued. "You have to earn it. I can open the door, but you have to walk through it. If you get this job, it'll be because you're qualified, not because of me." Marcus looked up at her. "Why do you care so much about a stranger?" Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because 3 weeks ago a stranger cared about me, and it reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "What?" "That the world can still be kind, if we let it." She turned and walked toward the elevator. At the door she paused and looked back. "Thursday, Marcus. Don't let me down." Then she was gone. Marcus stood there for a long time holding the folder, feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Marcus didn't tell anyone about the interview. Not Ray, not Mrs. Patterson, not even Sophie. He went back to work that afternoon and finished his shift like nothing had happened. He hauled drywall. He climbed scaffolding. He ate his lunch alone by the fence, the folder hidden in his car burning a hole in his thoughts. That night after Sophie was asleep, he sat on the floor of the empty living room and opened the folder again. He read the email 3 times, then 3 more. Thursday, 10 o'clock. Preston and Associates. He had 4 days. 4 days to become the man he used to be. 4 days to convince a room full of strangers that he was worth taking a chance on. 4 days to change everything. Marcus pulled out his laptop and started preparing. He stayed up until 3 a.m. that first night, reviewing his old portfolio, studying Preston's recent projects, reading articles about their design philosophy. His eyes burned. His body ached from the day's labor. But he couldn't stop. He woke at 4:30 to drop Sophie at Mrs. Patterson's, worked a full shift at the construction site, then came home and studied until midnight. He did this for 3 days straight. On Tuesday night, Sophie found him at the kitchen table surrounded by printouts and sketches. "Daddy, what are you doing?" Marcus looked up. He hadn't heard her get out of bed. "Just some work, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." Sophie padded over and climbed into his lap. She looked at the papers spread across the table. "Are these buildings?" "Yeah, they're buildings." "Did you draw them?" "Some of them. A long time ago." Sophie picked up one of the sketches. It was a community center Marcus had designed in his second year at Morrison & Associates. Clean lines, open spaces, a playground visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. "This one's pretty," Sophie said. "It has a playground. I designed it for kids, so they'd have a safe place to play while their parents worked." "Did they build it?" Marcus's throat tightened. "No, the project got canceled. Budget cuts." Sophie put the sketch down carefully. "That's sad. Kids should have a place to play." "Yeah, they should." She leaned her head against his chest. "Are you going to build buildings again, Daddy?" Marcus wrapped his arms around her. "I'm going to try, sweetheart. I'm going to try really hard." "Good." Sophie yawned. "Because you're really good at it." He carried her back to bed and tucked her in. She was asleep before he reached the door. Marcus went back to the kitchen table and looked at his old designs. The community center, the affordable housing complex, the children's library he'd proposed but never got to build. He'd had so many dreams once, before Maya got sick. Yeah. Before everything fell apart. Before he learned that dreams didn't pay the rent. But maybe he could dream again. Wednesday morning, Marcus called in sick for the first time since he'd started at the construction site. Ray answered on the second ring. "Chen, what's up?" "I can't come in today. Or tomorrow." A pause. "You okay?" "I'm fine. I have something I need to do." Another pause. Longer this time. "This got anything to do with that woman who came through the site on Monday? The one who pulled you aside?" Marcus hesitated. "Yeah, it does." "She offering you a job?" "An interview. A real one. In my field." Ray was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "About damn time." "What?" "Chen, you're the most overqualified laborer I've ever had. You think I didn't notice? You think I didn't see you looking at the blueprints like you could do it better? You're not meant for this work. You never were." Marcus didn't know what to say. "Take your days," Ray continued. "Go get that job, and when you're some big-shot architect, remember the guys who hauled drywall with you?" "I will. Thank you, Ray, for everything." "Don't thank me. Just don't screw it up." Marcus spent Wednesday preparing. He ironed his suit, the same one he'd worn to the first interview, now cleaned and pressed. He practiced his answers in front of the bathroom mirror. He reviewed his portfolio until he could describe every project in his sleep. At 6 p.m. his phone rang. He looked at the screen. Mom. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Marcus?" His mother's voice was clipped. "I've been calling you all week." "I've been busy." "Too busy for your own mother." "I had things to deal with." "What things? More construction work? More?" "I have a job interview tomorrow." Silence. Complete and total silence. What did you say? I have an interview, tomorrow, at Preston and Associates. Preston. His mother's voice sharpened. The same firm that rejected you last month. They're giving me another chance. How? Why would they? The woman I helped, the one whose car broke down. She's the CEO of Mitchell Design Group. She made some calls. Another long silence. Marcus could practically hear his mother processing this information. So you got a second interview because of a connection, she finally said. Not because of your qualifications. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. She's giving me a chance. That's all. I still have to earn it. And you think you can? After 3 years out of the field, after... Yes. The word came out stronger than he expected. I think I can. His mother was quiet. Then softer. I want to believe that, Marcus. I really do. Then believe it. I've believed before, and I've been disappointed before. This time is different. You've said that before, too. Marcus closed his eyes. I know, but I'm asking you to trust me, just this once. Another silence. Then his mother said, What time is the interview? 10 o'clock. Call me when it's over. I will. And Marcus, yeah. Don't be late. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone for a long moment. That was the closest his mother had come to saying good luck in years. He went back to preparing. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold. Marcus was up at 5 a.m., even though the interview wasn't until 10. He showered, shaved, put on his suit. He stood in front of the mirror and practiced his introduction one more time. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a graduate of Cornell's architecture program, and I spent 6 years at Morrison & Associates before what? Before his wife got cancer, and he had to choose between his career and being there for her. Before she died, and he fell apart. Before 3 years of grief and unemployment and desperation. He couldn't say any of that. He had to find another way. I took time away from the field to focus on family obligations. But I've stayed current with industry developments, and I'm ready to bring my experience and passion back to professional practice. It sounded rehearsed. Because it was. He tried again. I'm a father. My daughter is 7 years old. Everything I do for her, and I'm ready to build the future she deserves. Better, more honest, but maybe too personal. Marcus adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. At 7:30, he walked into Sophie's room. She was already awake, sitting up in bed, looking at him with wide eyes. Daddy, you look fancy. Thanks, sweetheart. Is today the day? He knelt beside her bed. Yeah, today's the day. The important job thing. The very important job thing. Sophie threw her arms around his neck. You're going to get it. I know you are. How do you know? Because you're my daddy. And daddies always win. Marcus held her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. I love you, Sophie. I love you too, Daddy. Now go win. He dropped her at Mrs. Patterson's and headed downtown. Traffic was light. The roads were clear. Everything was going smoothly. Too smoothly. Marcus kept waiting for something to go wrong. A flat tire. An accident. Another stranded motorist who needed help. But nothing happened. The highway stretched ahead of him, empty and open. He arrived at Preston & Associates at 9:15, 45 minutes early. He parked in the same lot he'd parked in a month ago. He walked through the same glass doors. He approached the same marble reception desk. The receptionist looked up, the same woman who'd turned him away before. Can I help you? Marcus Chen. I have an interview at 10 o'clock, with Mr. Harrison. She checked her computer. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Yes, Mr. Chen. You're on the schedule. Please have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly. Marcus sat in the same leather chair he'd sat in a month ago, but everything felt different now. He wasn't desperate, he wasn't panicked, he was ready. At 9:55, a young woman appeared. "Mr. Chen, Mr. Harrison will see you now." Marcus stood. His legs were steady. His hands weren't shaking. He followed her down a long hallway lined with framed photographs, buildings, awards, smiling executives shaking hands. The history of a company that had been shaping skylines for 40 years. The woman stopped at a corner office. "Good luck," she said, and walked away. Marcus knocked. "Come in." He opened the door. Robert Harrison was sitting behind a massive oak desk reading something on his computer. He was older than Marcus expected, maybe late 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Mr. Chen?" Harrison stood and extended his hand. "Please sit down." Marcus shook his hand and took the seat across from him. Harrison studied him for a moment. "I'm going to be direct with you, Mr. Chen. We don't usually give second chances. When you missed your first interview, you were removed from consideration. Permanently. I understand. But then I got a call from Grace Mitchell. She told me what you did for her that morning. How you stopped to help a complete stranger, even though it meant sacrificing your own interview." Harrison leaned back in his chair. "She was very insistent that we reconsider." Marcus didn't know how to respond. "I've known Grace for 20 years, Harrison continued. "She doesn't ask for favors, ever. So when she called me about you, I listened. But I want you to understand something. This interview is not a formality. You will be evaluated on your merits, not on Grace's recommendation. If you're not qualified, you won't get the job." "Clear." "Clear." Harrison nodded. "Good. Then let's begin." The next 2 hours were the most intense of Marcus's professional life. Harrison started with technical questions, load-bearing calculations, thermal efficiency standards, building code regulations. Marcus answered each one carefully, methodically, drawing on knowledge he hadn't used in 3 years but had never really forgotten. Then came the design challenges. Harrison presented hypothetical scenarios. A client who wanted conflicting things, a budget that couldn't accommodate the vision, a site with impossible constraints. Marcus worked through each one, explaining his reasoning, defending his choices. Finally, Harrison asked about his portfolio. Marcus walked him through his best projects from Morrison and Associates, the community center that never got built, the affordable housing complex that had won a regional award, the children's library he'd designed in his spare time just because he believed every neighborhood deserved one. Harrison listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, the older man was quiet for a long moment. "Why did you leave Morrison?" Marcus had been waiting for this question, dreading it. "My wife got sick, cancer. I took a leave of absence to care for her. And after she died, my daughter was 5. I couldn't—" Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "I couldn't be the father she needed and the architect I wanted to be, not at the same time. So I chose her." Harrison nodded slowly. "And now she's 7. She's stronger, and so am I." Marcus met Harrison's eyes. "I'm not the same man I was 3 years ago. I've lost things. I've learned things. But I've never stopped being an architect. Not in here." He touched his chest. "I'm ready to build again, if you'll give me the chance." Harrison studied him for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window. "I built this company from nothing," he set his back to Marcus. 40 years ago, I was a young man with a drafting table and a dream. No connections, no money. Just a belief that I could create something meaningful." He turned around. "Do you know what the most important quality in an architect is, Mr. Chen?" Marcus shook his head. "It's not talent. It's not education. It's not even experience." Harrison walked back to his desk. "It's integrity. The willingness to do the right thing, even when it costs you. The courage to put others before yourself." He sat down. "Grace told me you helped her, even though it meant losing everything. That's the kind of man I want working for me." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. "But I need to know one thing. Harrison continued. If you were in that same situation again, late for an interview, everything on the line, a stranger who needed help, what would you do? Marcus didn't hesitate. I'd stop. Every time. Harrison smiled. It was the first time he'd smiled since the interview began. That's the right answer. He stood and extended his hand again. We'll be in touch, Mr. Chen. Thank you for your time. Marcus shook his hand. Thank you for the opportunity. He walked out of the office down the long hallway through the marble lobby into the parking lot. He got into his car and sat there for a moment, his hands on the steering wheel. He'd done it. He'd done everything he could. Now all he could do was wait. The next 3 days were agony. Marcus went back to work at the construction site, but his mind wasn't there. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart stopped. Every time it wasn't Preston and Associates, something died inside him a little. On Friday, nothing. On Saturday, nothing. On Sunday, his mother called. Well, I haven't heard anything yet. A pause. It's been 3 days, Marcus. I know. If they were going to offer you the job, wouldn't they have called by now? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. I'm just trying to prepare you. In case. I know what you're trying to do, Mom. Marcus's voice came out sharper than he intended. But I need you to believe in me right now. Just for a few more days. Can you do that? Silence. Then quietly. I'm trying, Marcus. I really am. I know. I know you are. Monday morning, Marcus was up on the scaffolding when his phone rang. He almost didn't answer. He'd trained himself to ignore calls during work hours. But something made him look at the screen. A number he didn't recognize. A downtown area code. His hands were shaking as he climbed down. Hello? Mr. Chen. A woman's voice. Professional. Familiar. This is Amanda Richards from Preston and Associates. Mr. Harrison would like to speak with you. Can you hold? Marcus's heart stopped. Yes, I can hold. There was a click. Silence. Then, Mr. Chen. Harrison's voice came through the line. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Marcus looked around at the construction site. The scaffolding. The workers hauling materials. The life he'd built out of desperation. No, sir. Now is fine. Good. I'll get right to the point. We've reviewed your interview, and we've made our decision. Marcus held his breath. We'd like to offer you the position of senior architect at Preston and Associates. The salary is $92,000 annually with full benefits and a signing bonus of $5,000. We'd like you to start in 2 weeks. Marcus's legs gave out. He sat down on a stack of lumber, the phone pressed to his ear, unable to speak. Mr. Chen, are you still there? Yes. The word came out as a whisper. Yes, I'm here. Do you accept? I accept. Yes, absolutely, I accept. Excellent. Amanda will email you the paperwork this afternoon. We look forward to working with you, Mr. Chen. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me. You earned this. A pause. And Mr. Chen? Yes. Grace was right about you. The line went dead. Marcus sat there on the stack of lumber surrounded by the noise of the construction site and felt something break open inside him. He'd done it. After 3 years of struggle, 3 years of failure, 3 years of being told he wasn't good enough, he'd done it. Ray found him 10 minutes later, still sitting there staring at nothing. Chen, what's wrong? Marcus looked up at him. I got the job. Ray's face transformed. No kidding. No kidding. Ray let out a whoop that echoed across the site. Several workers looked over confused. I knew it. Ray clapped him on the shoulder. I knew you'd get it. When do you start? 2 weeks. Then we better give you one hell of a send-off. Ray grinned. Come on. Let's finish out the day, and then we're going to celebrate. Marcus stood up, his legs still unsteady. I need to call someone first. Take your time. Marcus walked to the edge of the site away from the noise. He dialed his mother's number. She answered on the first ring. Marcus. I got the job. Silence. Complete and total silence. Mom, did you hear me? I heard you. Her voice was strange, thick. You got the job. Senior architect, $92,000 a year, full benefits. Another silence. Then a sound Marcus hadn't heard in years. His mother was crying. Mom, I'm sorry. Her voice broke. I'm so sorry, Marcus. For everything I said. For every time I made you feel like you weren't enough. I was so scared. So scared you'd give up, that Sophie would suffer, that... It's okay, Mom. It's not okay. I should have believed in you. I should have trusted you. Instead, She couldn't finish. You pushed me because you loved me. I know that. I've always known that. Your father would be so proud of you. The words came out in a rush. He always said you had something special. He always said you'd do great things, and I was too afraid to see it. You see it now. That's what matters. His mother was quiet for a moment, then softer. I'm proud of you, Marcus. I should have said that more. I should have said it every day. You can start now. She laughed. It was a wet, broken sound, but it was a laugh. Can I come see you, you and Sophie? I want to be there, when you start your new life. Yeah, Mom. I'd like that. I love you, Marcus. I love you too, Mom. He hung up and stood there for a moment, looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there in one of those glass towers, his future was waiting. He just had to go claim it. That evening, Marcus picked Sophie up from Mrs. Patterson's early. You're here. Sophie ran toward him and launched herself into his arms. Why are you early? Did something happen? Marcus caught her and swung her around. Something happened. Bad something or good something? The best something. He set her down and knelt to her level. I got the job, Sophie. The building job. The one where I get to design things. Sophie's eyes went wide. The real one? The one you were hoping for? The real one. She screamed so loud, Mrs. Patterson came running from the kitchen. What's wrong? Is everyone? Daddy got the job? Sophie was jumping up and down, pulling on Marcus's hands. He got the job. He's going to build buildings again. Mrs. Patterson's face transformed. She walked over and put her hands on Marcus's shoulders. I knew you would. I never doubted it for a second. Thank you. Marcus's voice caught. For everything. For watching Sophie. For believing in me. For the money. Don't. Mrs. Patterson shook her head. That's what family is for. You're not. I am. Her eyes were fierce. You and Sophie are my family. Don't you ever forget that. Marcus hugged her. She felt small and fragile in his arms, but her grip was strong. Now go, she said, pulling back. Go celebrate. Take that little girl and do something special. You've earned it. Marcus took Sophie to her favorite pizza place. They ordered a large pepperoni with extra cheese, and Sophie talked non-stop about all the buildings Daddy was going to design. Can you design a castle with a moat? Probably not a castle, but maybe something just as cool. Can you design a house for us? A big one with a yard and a room just for my toys? Marcus smiled. I think I can do that. Eventually. And a room for Grandma so she can visit. Yeah, sweetheart. A room for Grandma too. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Then she got very serious. Daddy. Yeah. I'm really proud of you. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Thanks, kiddo. Mommy would be proud too. I know she would. He reached across the table and took her hand. I think you're right. She's watching us, you know. From heaven. She sees everything. You think so? I know so. Sophie squeezed his hand. And she's happy. Because we're going to be okay now. Marcus looked at his daughter, this small, fierce, beautiful girl, who had inherited her mother's eyes and her mother's heart and knew she was right. They were going to be okay. They were going to be more than okay. 2 weeks later, Marcus walked into Preston & Associates as a senior architect. The lobby felt different this time. The marble floors didn't seem so intimidating. The glass walls didn't feel like barriers. He walked past the reception desk with his badge already clipped to his jacket, and the same woman who had turned him away a month ago smiled and said, "Good morning, Mr. Chen." "Good morning." He took the elevator to the 4th floor and found his cubicle. It wasn't a corner office, he hadn't expected one, but it had a window. A small window that looked out over the city, over the streets he'd driven through in desperation, over the construction sites where he'd hauled drywall just 2 weeks ago. A stack of project files sat on his desk. His computer was already logged in, his email already set up. Someone had left a coffee mug on the corner with "Welcome to the team" printed on the side. Marcus sat down and opened the first file. He was home. The first week was overwhelming in the best possible way. Marcus hadn't realized how much he'd missed this, the rhythm of design work, the challenge of balancing aesthetics with function, the satisfaction of solving problems that actually mattered. He stayed late every night not because he had to, but because he couldn't make himself leave. His team was small, but talented. 3 junior architects, a project manager named David, who had been with Preston for 15 years, and Marcus. They were working on a mixed-use development on the east side of the city, residential units on the upper floors, retail space below, a community garden on the roof. "You're the new guy?" David had asked on the first day. "The one Grace Mitchell called about?" Marcus tensed. "Yeah, that's me." "Relax, I'm not going to give you a hard time." David grinned. "Anyone Grace vouches for is okay in my book. That woman doesn't make mistakes about people." "You know her. Everyone knows her. She's a legend in this industry. Started Mitchell Design Group in her garage 20 years ago. Now she's got offices in 5 cities and more awards than she can fit on her walls." David shook his head. "But what I respect most about her is how she treats people. Never forgets where she came from. Never stops helping others get there too." Marcus thought about the woman standing beside the broken Mercedes, scared and alone. He wondered if anyone who passed her that day knew who she was. He wondered if it would have mattered. Probably not. That was the point. On Friday of his first week, Marcus found a card on his desk. No name, just a handwritten note. "Proud of you. Keep building. G." He put the card in his wallet and carried it with him everywhere. The money changed everything. Not all at once. The first paycheck went straight to bills, catching up on everything he'd fallen behind on. But by the second month, Marcus had enough to start thinking about the future, instead of just surviving the present. He started looking for apartments. "What about this one?" Sophie pointed at a listing on his laptop. "It has a swimming pool." "That one's too far from your school, sweetheart." "What about this one? It has a dog." "That's the neighbor's dog. And I'm not sure pets are allowed." Sophie sighed dramatically. "Finding a house is hard." "Tell me about it." They found the right place on a Sunday afternoon in October. A 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, walking distance from Sophie's school. It had hardwood floors, big windows, and a small balcony that looked out over a park. "This one?" Sophie said the moment they walked in. "This is the one." Marcus looked around. The walls were freshly painted. The kitchen had new appliances. The bathroom had an actual bathtub, not just a shower stall. It cost more than he'd planned to spend. But when he saw Sophie running from room to room declaring each one better than the last, he knew there was no other choice. "We'll take it," he told the landlord. They moved in 2 weeks later. Marcus rented a small truck and packed up everything they owned, which after selling most of their furniture to pay the old rent wasn't much. The clothes, Sophie's toys, the few photographs they'd kept of Maya. Mrs. Patterson came to help. She brought homemade cookies and a housewarming gift, a small ceramic vase with flowers painted on the side. "For your new kitchen," she said. "Every home needs flowers." Marcus hugged her. "I don't know how to thank you for everything. You just did." She pulled back and looked at him with those fierce, loving eyes. "Now go, build your life, and don't forget to visit. Never." The first night in the new apartment, Marcus and Sophie sat on the floor of the empty living room, eating pizza out of the box. "Daddy, we don't have any furniture." "I know. We'll get some." "When?" "Soon. This weekend, maybe." Sophie considered this. "Can I pick out my bed?" "Sure." "And my desk for homework?" "Absolutely." "And a couch. A really big couch that we can all sit on, you and me and Grandma." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, sweetheart, a really big couch." Sophie smiled and took another bite of pizza. "I like it here, Daddy." "Me too." "It feels like a real home." Marcus looked around at the empty walls, the bare floors, the boxes stacked in the corner. It didn't look like much. Not yet. But Sophie was right. It felt like home. For the first time in 3 years it felt like home. His mother came to visit the following weekend. Marcus picked her up at the train station on Saturday morning. She stepped off the platform, looking older than he remembered, grayer, smaller, more fragile. But when she saw him, her face transformed. "Marcus." "Hi, Mom." She walked toward him and stopped a few feet away like she wasn't sure what to do next. They'd never been a hugging family. Not since his father died. But Marcus stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her anyway. She stiffened for a moment. Then she held on like she was afraid to let go. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything." "I know, Mom. I was so scared. After your father and then Maya, I couldn't lose you too. And I thought if I pushed you hard enough, if I made you strong enough. I know. But I just made everything worse. I made you feel like you weren't enough. And you were always enough, Marcus. You were always more than enough." He held her tighter. "It's okay, Mom. It's okay now." Sophie was waiting at the apartment when they arrived. She'd insisted on wearing her best dress, a purple one with flowers that Maya had bought her 2 years ago, and she'd tried to brush her own hair with mixed results. "Grandma?" She ran toward Eleanor the moment she walked through the door. "You're here. You're really here." Eleanor knelt down and caught her. "Of course I'm here. I wouldn't miss this for anything." "Do you want to see my room?" "I have my own room now. And there's a window that looks at the park. And Daddy said we can get curtains and—" "Slow down, sweetheart." Eleanor laughed. Actually laughed, and Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd heard that sound. "Show me everything." Sophie grabbed her hand and dragged her down the hall. Marcus could hear them talking as they went, Sophie's high voice and Eleanor's lower one mixing together like music. He stood in the living room and felt something settle in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. They spent the day together. Sophie gave Eleanor the grand tour, every room, every corner, every feature she was proud of. They went to the park across the street and fed the ducks. They got ice cream at the shop on the corner. They walked around the neighborhood, Sophie pointing out everything she'd discovered since they moved in. "And that's the library, Grandma. They have story time on Tuesdays. And that's the bakery. They make really good cookies. And that's the school. See, it's so close I can walk there." Eleanor took it all in, asking questions, listening carefully. She was different than Marcus remembered. Softer. More present. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Marcus and Eleanor sat on the balcony looking out at the city lights. "She's beautiful," Eleanor said. "She looks so much like Maya." "I know." "She has your heart, though. Your kindness." Eleanor turned to look at him. "I should have seen that in you. All those years I should have seen it." "You were grieving too, Mom. We both were." That's not an excuse. No, but it's an explanation. Marcus took a breath. Dad died when I was 15. I barely knew how to grieve for him before I had to grow up and take care of everyone else. And then when Maya got sick, he stopped. He hadn't talked about this, not to anyone. Go on, Eleanor said softly. When Maya got sick, all I could think about was how I'd failed her. How I wasn't successful enough, wasn't earning enough, wasn't strong enough. And then you kept calling, kept telling me to try harder, kept comparing me to Dad. Marcus. And I started to believe it. I started to believe I really wasn't enough. That no matter what I did, it would never be good enough. Eleanor's eyes were wet. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I know. But you did. Marcus met her gaze. And I'm not saying that to hurt you. I'm saying it because I need you to understand. These past 3 years I wasn't failing because I didn't try hard enough. I was failing because I was broken. And I needed someone to believe in me, not push me harder. Eleanor was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Your father was the same way. Marcus frowned. What? Before he became successful, before he built his reputation, he struggled too, for years. Eleanor looked out at the city. He never talked about it. He was ashamed, I think. But I remember. The rejections, the failures, the nights he'd come home defeated, and I'd tell him to keep going, keep fighting. I didn't know that. He didn't want you to know. He wanted you to see him as strong as successful. He didn't want you to know how hard he had to work to get there. Eleanor turned back to Marcus. But I should have told you. I should have told you that struggle is part of the journey. That failure doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you haven't gotten there yet. Marcus didn't know what to say. Your father would be so proud of you, Eleanor continued. Not because you got this job, not because you have this apartment, but because you kept going, you kept trying. You never gave up on Sophie, even when everything was falling apart. I almost did, Marcus admitted. There were nights when I didn't know how I was going to make it to the morning. Nights when I thought maybe everyone would be better off if I just... He couldn't finish the sentence. Eleanor reached out and took his hand. Her grip was stronger than he expected. But you didn't give up. You're here. You made it. She squeezed his hand. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how proud I am of you. How proud I've always been, even when I was too scared to show it. Marcus looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. Thanks, Mom. Thank you. For not giving up on me either. They sat there on the balcony until the stars came out, not talking, just being together. For the first time since his father's death, it felt like they were actually a family again. Eleanor stayed for 3 days. She helped Marcus pick out furniture. She cooked dinner every night, recipes he remembered from childhood meals he hadn't tasted in years. She read Sophie bedtime stories and helped her with her homework, and listened to every story Sophie wanted to tell. On the last night, Sophie asked if Grandma could stay forever. I have to go home, sweetheart, but I'll come back, I promise. When? Soon. And you can come visit me too. We'll make it a tradition. Sophie hugged her tight. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, my darling. More than you know. At the train station the next morning, Eleanor hugged Marcus one more time. Take care of yourself, she said, and take care of that little girl. I will. And call me. Not just when things go wrong. Call me when things go right too. I will, Mom. I mean it, Marcus. I know you do. She held his face in her hands the way she used to when he was a child. You're a good man, the best man I know. Don't ever forget that. Then she turned and walked toward the platform. Marcus watched until the train pulled away, until she was gone. He stood there for a long moment, feeling something he hadn't expected to feel. Whole. The months that followed were the best of Marcus's life since Maya. He threw himself into his work at Preston. The mixed-use development was coming along beautifully. They'd broken ground in November, and by January, the steel skeleton was rising toward the sky. Marcus spent hours on site working with contractors, solving problems, making sure every detail matched his vision. "You've got a gift," David told him one afternoon. "The way you see things. The way you make everyone else see them too. I just want to build something that matters." "You are. Trust me. This building is going to change that whole neighborhood." At home, life settled into a rhythm. Marcus woke at 6, made Sophie breakfast, walked her to school. He worked until 5, picked her up from after-school care. Made dinner, helped with homework, read bedtime stories. On weekends, they explored the city together, museums, parks, restaurants they'd never been able to afford before. Sophie was thriving. Her grades improved. She made friends. She stopped having nightmares about losing Daddy, about being alone. "I'm happy," she told Marcus one night out of nowhere. "Yeah. What made you think of that?" "I don't know. I was just thinking about before. When we lived in the old apartment and you were sad all the time. And I was scared." She looked at him with those big, serious eyes. "I'm not scared anymore." "Me neither, sweetheart. Because we're a team, right, you and me? The best team." She smiled. "That's what Mommy would say." "Yeah, it is." One evening in March, Marcus got a call from an unexpected number. He was sitting on the couch, going over blueprints for a new project, when his phone buzzed. He didn't recognize the number, but something made him answer. "Marcus, it's Grace Mitchell." He sat up straighter. "Ms. Mitchell, I wasn't expecting." "Grace, please." He could hear the smile in her voice. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "No, not at all. I was just doing some work." "Good, because I have a proposition for you." Marcus set down the blueprints. "I'm listening." "I'm starting a foundation, the Second Chance Initiative. Its mission is to identify talented professionals who've fallen through the cracks, people with skills and drive who just need an opportunity to rebuild their careers." She paused. "People like you?" Marcus didn't know what to say. "I've been thinking about it since the day we met," Grace continued. "You gave up everything to help a stranger on the side of the road. And because of that, you almost lost everything. But you didn't. You fought your way back, and now you're thriving." "Thanks to you." "Thanks to yourself. I just opened a door. You walked through it." Marcus thought about all the people like him, struggling, desperate, one bad break away from losing everything. People with talent and determination who just needed someone to believe in them. "What would you need from me?" "Your story, your experience, your willingness to help others the way I helped you." Grace's voice was warm. "I want you on the board of the foundation. Not as a token, as a leader. Someone who understands what it's like to be on the other side." "I'm not sure I'm qualified." "You're more qualified than anyone I know. You lived it, Marcus. You know what it feels like to be ignored, to be dismissed, to be told you're not good enough. And you know what it feels like to get a second chance." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." A pause. "And Marcus?" "Yeah. However you decide, I want you to know I'm proud of what you've accomplished. You've proven that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength." After they hung up, Marcus sat on the couch for a long time staring at his phone. He thought about the day he stopped for Grace, the choice he'd made, the price he'd paid. He thought about Ray at the construction site, giving him a chance when no one else would. About Mrs. Patterson, who refused to take his money and treated Sophie like her own grandchild. About his mother, who had finally learned to believe in him. He thought about all the people who had helped him along the way, often without knowing they were doing it. And he realized something. This was his chance to pay it forward, to help others the way he'd been helped. to make sure that the next person standing on the side of the road, scared and alone, wouldn't have to wait for someone to stop. He called Grace back the next morning. "I'm in." "I was hoping you'd say that." He could hear her smile through the phone. "Welcome to the team, Marcus. Let's change some lives." The foundation launched in June. Marcus was there for the announcement, standing beside Grace at a press conference downtown. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions. The mayor gave a speech about opportunity and community and the power of second chances. But what Marcus remembered most was afterward, when a young woman approached him. She was maybe 25, with tired eyes and nervous hands. "Excuse me. Are you Marcus Chen?" "Yes." "I heard your story. About what happened. About how you got your second chance." She hesitated. "I'm a nurse. Or I was. I lost my license because of a mistake I made. One mistake, and now no one will hire me. I've been working retail for 2 years trying to figure out how to start over." Marcus thought about himself 2 years ago. The desperation, the fear, the feeling that no one was coming to help. "What's your name?" "Jennifer. Jennifer Walsh." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "Call this number on Monday. Ask for Grace Mitchell. Tell her I sent you." Jennifer's eyes widened. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Someone did it for me once. I'm just passing it along." She took the card like it was made of gold. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you're back on your feet." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and walked away. Marcus watched her go and felt something warm spread through his chest. This was what it was all about. Not the job, not the money, not the apartment. This moment, this connection, this chance to help someone the way he'd been helped. Grace appeared beside him. "Making friends already?" "Just doing what you taught me." "I didn't teach you anything, Marcus. You already knew how to be kind. I just gave you the opportunity to keep doing it." Marcus looked at her, this woman who had changed his life with a single phone call, a single act of faith. "Thank you. For everything." "Don't thank me." Grace smiled. "Just keep paying it forward. That's all the thanks I need." That night, Marcus went home to Sophie. She was waiting at the door when he walked in, bouncing on her heels with excitement. "Daddy, I saw you on TV." "You did?" "Mrs. Patterson showed me on her phone. You were standing next to that lady, the one from the car." "That's right." "She said you're helping people now, people who need second chances." Marcus knelt down to her level. "That's exactly what we're doing." Sophie's face was serious. "Is that because someone gave you a second chance?" "Yes, it is." "And now you're giving second chances to other people." "Exactly." Sophie considered this. Then she said, "That's what Mommy would do." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Yeah. She always said we should help people, even when it's hard. Even when no one's watching." Sophie looked at him with those big, serious eyes, Maya's eyes. "She'd be proud of you, Daddy. Really, really proud." Marcus pulled her into a hug. He held her there, this small, fierce, beautiful girl who had inherited her mother's heart. "Thanks, sweetheart." "For what?" "For reminding me who I want to be." Sophie hugged him back. "You're already who you want to be, Daddy. You just forgot for a while." Marcus laughed, and it came out half as a sob. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned it from you." They stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, holding on to each other in the doorway of their home. And for the first time in years, Marcus knew, really knew, that everything was going to be okay. Not just okay. Better than okay. Everything was going to be exactly what it was supposed to be. 1 year later, Marcus stood in front of a building that hadn't existed 12 months ago. The community center rose 3 stories tall, all glass and warm wood and clean modern lines. Its front entrance faced a neighborhood that had been forgotten by the rest of the city for decades. Crumbling sidewalks, boarded-up storefronts, families struggling to get by. But now, through those floor-to-ceiling windows, Marcus could see children running through the lobby, parents signing up for job training programs, elderly residents gathering for the first time in a space that was truly theirs. He'd designed every inch of it. "You're going to wear a hole in the sidewalk if you keep pacing like that." Marcus turned. Grace was walking toward him, a coffee cup in each hand. She offered one to him. Nervous? Terrified? "Good," she smiled. "That means it matters." The dedication ceremony was scheduled to start in an hour. The mayor was coming. The press was coming. The whole neighborhood was coming. And Marcus was supposed to give a speech. He'd written it a dozen times, thrown it away a dozen more. Nothing felt right. Nothing captured what this building meant to him, what it represented. "You know what to say," Grace said, as if reading his thoughts. "You've known all along. You just have to trust yourself. What if I mess it up?" "Then you mess it up, and the world keeps turning." She took a sip of her coffee. "But you won't mess it up, because this isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest." Marcus looked at the building again. Through the windows, he could see the main hall where the ceremony would take place. Rows of chairs were being set up. A podium stood at the front waiting for him. "I keep thinking about Maya," he said quietly. "About what she would think of all this." "What do you think she'd say?" Marcus closed his eyes. He could almost hear her voice, warm, gentle, always believing in him, even when he couldn't believe in himself. "She'd say it's about time." Grace laughed. "Smart woman." "The smartest." They stood there in silence for a moment, watching the neighborhood come alive around them. People were streaming toward the community center from all directions. Families with children, elderly couples holding hands, teenagers who looked like they'd never been invited anywhere in their lives. "This is what it's all about," Grace said. "Not the building, not the ceremony, this. People finding a place where they belong." Marcus nodded. He understood that now, better than he ever had before. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." "Stop thanking me. I'm tired of hearing it." "I mean it. Without you. Without me, you would have found another way." Grace turned to face him. "That's what I've learned about you, Marcus. You don't give up. You don't quit. You find a way even when there isn't one. I just happened to be standing in the right place at the right time. On the side of the road with a broken car." "Exactly." She smiled. "Best breakdown I ever had." Sophie arrived 30 minutes before the ceremony, holding Eleanor's hand. She was wearing a new dress, blue with white flowers, and her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked so grown up that Marcus felt his heart catch in his chest. 9 years old now. When had that happened? Daddy. She ran toward him and threw her arms around his waist. "Your building is so beautiful." "You think so?" "It's the most beautiful building in the whole city." She looked up at him with shining eyes. "Everyone's going to love it." Eleanor followed more slowly, but she was smiling too. She'd aged in the past year, they all had, but there was a lightness to her now that hadn't been there before. The heaviness she'd carried since Marcus's father died seemed to have finally lifted. "She's right, you know," Eleanor said, looking at the community center. "It's remarkable." "I had a lot of help." "Don't be modest. You designed this. Every detail. I can see your touch everywhere." Marcus didn't know what to say. His mother had never complimented his work before. Not like this. Not with such obvious pride. "Thanks, Mom." "Your father designed a community center once. Did you know that?" Marcus frowned. "No, you never told me." "It was early in his career, before we were married. He used to talk about it sometimes, how it was the project that made him fall in love with architecture. Not because it was prestigious or profitable, but because it mattered. Because it would help people." She looked at Marcus with wet eyes. "He would be so proud of what you've built here. So incredibly proud." Marcus hugged her. He didn't trust himself to speak. Sophie tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, there are TV cameras." I know, sweetheart. Are you going to be on TV again? Probably. Can I wave if they show me? Marcus laughed. You can wave all you want. The ceremony started at noon. The main hall was packed. Every seat was filled, and people were standing along the walls, crowding into doorways. Marcus recognized faces from the neighborhood families he'd met during the design process, residents who'd shared their hopes and fears for what this building could become. The mayor spoke first. He talked about revitalization investment, the future of the city. Politicians always talked like that, big words, grand promises. Marcus barely listened. Then Grace took the podium. A year ago, I made a phone call that changed my life. The room went quiet. I called a man I'd never met, a man who had given up his job interview to help me when my car broke down on the side of the road. I didn't know his last name. I didn't know anything about him. All I knew was that he'd chosen kindness over self-interest, and that choice had cost him everything. Grace paused, looking out at the crowd. His name is Marcus Chen, and when I finally found him, he was working construction, struggling to keep a roof over his daughter's head. He'd lost his career. He'd nearly lost his home. All because he stopped to help a stranger. Marcus felt hundreds of eyes turn toward him. He kept his own eyes fixed on Grace. But Marcus didn't ask for anything. He didn't want pity or charity. All he wanted was a chance to prove that he was still the architect he'd always been, a chance to build something that mattered. Grace smiled. I gave him that chance. And this building, this beautiful, transformative building, is the result. Not because I did anything special, but because Marcus Chen is exactly who he appeared to be on that rainy morning, a man of integrity, compassion, and extraordinary talent. She gestured toward him. Marcus, would you like to say a few words? The walk to the podium felt like it took forever. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat loud in his ears. His hands were shaking. His mouth was dry. He looked out at the crowd, at the faces watching him, at Sophie in the front row beaming with pride, at Eleanor beside her dabbing her eyes with a tissue, at Grace standing off to the side nodding encouragement. He opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. The crowd shifted. Someone coughed. Marcus felt the panic rising in his chest. And then Sophie's voice cut through the silence. You can do it, Daddy! A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Marcus felt something release in his chest. He looked at his daughter, this small, fierce, beautiful girl, who had never stopped believing in him, not even when he'd stopped believing in himself. Thank you, sweetheart, he said into the microphone. More laughter. The tension broke. Marcus took a breath and began. 3 years ago, I was a different man. I had a wife I loved, a daughter I adored, a career I was proud of. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought if I just worked hard enough, tried hard enough, everything would turn out okay. He paused. Then my wife got sick, and I learned that hard work isn't enough, that sometimes life breaks you no matter what you do. Maya died 2 years ago, and when she left, she took a part of me with her. The part that believed in happy endings. The part that believed the world was fair. The room was silent. After she died, I fell apart. I couldn't work. I couldn't function. I could barely get out of bed some mornings. The only thing that kept me going was my daughter Sophie. She needed me. And I was determined not to let her down even when I felt like I was failing at everything else. Marcus looked at Sophie. She was watching him with those big, serious eyes, Maya's eyes. I spent months looking for work. 47 applications, 47 rejections. Finally, I got an interview at a prestigious firm. My last chance. If I got this job, everything would turn around. If I didn't. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. On the morning of that interview, I was driving down a back road when I saw a woman standing beside a broken-down car. She was alone, scared. No one had stopped to help her, and I had a choice to make. Marcus looked at Grace. If I stopped, I would be late, and I knew that if I was late, they wouldn't see me. That was the policy. No exceptions. He turned back to the crowd. But I couldn't leave her there. I couldn't drive past someone who needed help just because helping her would cost me something. That's not who I am. That's not who my wife would have wanted me to be. A murmur moved through the room. So I stopped. I fixed her car. I got her back on the road, and then I drove to that interview as fast as I could, praying that somehow it would work out. Marcus's voice dropped. It didn't work out. I was 23 minutes late. They wouldn't see me. 3 years of struggle, 47 rejections, and my one chance gone. Because I stopped to help a stranger. He let the words hang in the air. For weeks after that, I thought I'd made the worst mistake of my life. I took a job doing construction work. I sold everything we owned just to pay rent. I skipped meals so my daughter could eat. And every night I lay awake wondering if I'd sacrificed my family's future for someone who probably didn't even remember my name. Marcus smiled. I was wrong. He looked at Grace again. The woman I helped that day was Grace Mitchell, founder of Mitchell Design Group, one of the most influential architects in the country. And when she found out what had happened when she learned that I'd given up my interview to help her, she made a phone call. She opened a door, and she gave me the second chance I thought I'd lost forever. Grace smiled back at him. But here's the thing I've learned in the year since then. Grace didn't give me anything I hadn't already earned. She didn't hand me success. She gave me an opportunity, and I had to walk through that door myself. I had to prove that I was worth taking a chance on. I had to earn every single thing I have today. Marcus looked out at the crowd. That's what this building is about. Not charity. Not handouts. Opportunity. A chance for people who've been knocked down to get back up. A chance for families who've been struggling to find solid ground. A chance for kids who've never been told they matter to discover that they do. He touched the podium. When I designed this community center, I thought about all the people who've helped me along the way. My mother, who taught me to never give up even when she showed it in ways that felt like criticism. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who watched my daughter for free because that's what family does. My supervisor, Ray, who gave me a job when no one else would. And Grace, who saw something in me worth saving when I couldn't see it myself. Marcus's voice grew stronger. Every one of us has been helped by someone. Every one of us has been given a chance we didn't earn, a break we didn't deserve. And every one of us has the power to do the same for someone else. He looked at Sophie. My daughter asked me once why I stopped for that woman on the side of the road. I told her it was the right thing to do. But it's more than that. It's who we are. It's who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to stop when someone needs us, even when it costs us something. Especially when it costs us something. Marcus straightened. This building isn't mine. It belongs to this neighborhood, to the families who will use it, to the children who will play in it, to every person who walks through these doors looking for help, looking for hope, looking for a second chance. He took a breath. I dedicate this building to my wife Maya, who taught me what kindness really means. To my daughter Sophie, who reminds me every day why it matters. And to everyone who's ever stopped for a stranger, helped without being asked, or given someone a chance when the world told them not to bother. Marcus looked out at the crowd one last time. This is what we can build when we believe in each other. This is what happens when we stop measuring people by their worst moments and start seeing them for who they really are. This is what kindness looks like, not as a single act, but as a foundation for everything else. He stepped back from the podium. Thank you. The room exploded into applause. Marcus walked back to his seat, his legs unsteady, his heart pounding. Sophie was on her feet, clapping harder than anyone. Eleanor was openly crying. Even Grace looked moved. He sat down and felt Sophie grab his hand. That was amazing, Daddy. Yeah. The best speech ever. I almost couldn't do it. You saved me. Sophie grinned. That's what teammates are for. After the ceremony, people crowded around Marcus to shake his hand, to thank him, to share their own stories. A young mother told him how much the childcare program was going to change her life. An elderly man said the senior center gave him a reason to get out of bed in the morning. A teenager, shy, awkward, clearly uncomfortable, mumbled that she wanted to be an architect too someday if she could. Marcus gave her his card. "Call me when you're ready. We'll talk." Her eyes went wide. Really? Really? Everyone deserves a chance. She walked away, clutching the card like it was made of gold. Grace found him an hour later, standing alone in the main hall, watching the crowd thin out. "How does it feel?" "I don't know. Surreal. Like it's happening to someone else." "It's happening to you. Get used to it." She stood beside him, looking at the building they'd created together. "You know, when I first called Preston and Associates about you, Harrison thought I was crazy. He said you were a risk, unstable, too much time out of the field." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that the best architects aren't the ones who play it safe. They're the ones who take chances, who see possibilities where everyone else sees problems." She looked at him. "I told him you were worth the risk. And if I hadn't been, then I would have been wrong, but I wasn't wrong." Grace smiled. "I'm never wrong about people." "That's a bold claim." "It's also true." She checked her watch. "I have to go. Board meeting in an hour, but I wanted to tell you something before I left." "What?" "We're launching the next phase of the foundation next month, expanding to 3 more cities, and I want you to lead the architectural division." Marcus stared at her. "What?" "We need someone who understands what we're trying to do. Someone who can design spaces that actually serve the communities they're meant for. Someone who knows what it's like to need a second chance." Grace's eyes were bright. "That's you, Marcus. It's always been you." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Marcus thought about everything that had led to this moment. The interview he'd missed, the construction site where he'd hauled drywall, the empty apartment where he'd sat on the floor and cried, the phone call that changed everything. "Yes." "Good." Grace shook his hand. "We'll talk details next week. For now, go celebrate with your family. You've earned it." She walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Marcus stood there for a long moment, looking around at the building he'd designed, the community he'd helped create. Then Sophie appeared beside him, tugging on his sleeve. "Daddy, Grandma wants to know if we can get ice cream." Marcus laughed. "Absolutely. Let's go." They walked out of the community center together. Marcus, Sophie, and Eleanor into the warm afternoon sun. The ice cream shop was crowded, but they found a table by the window. Sophie ordered chocolate with sprinkles. Eleanor got vanilla. Marcus chose strawberry, Maya's favorite. "To new beginnings," Eleanor said, raising her cone in a toast. "To new beginnings." Sophie echoed, giggling. Marcus touched his cone to theirs. "To new beginnings." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Sophie got chocolate on her nose. Eleanor pretended to be horrified. Marcus just watched them, feeling something warm expand in his chest. This was what it was all about. Not the speeches or the buildings or the applause. This, family, love, the simple joy of being together. "Daddy." Sophie's voice cut through his thoughts. "Yeah, sweetheart. Are you happy?" Marcus looked at his daughter, at the ice cream on her face, at the joy in her eyes, at the way she looked so much like Maya that it made his heart ache. "Yeah, Sophie, I'm happy. Really happy, not just pretending. Really happy, the happiest I've been in a long time." Sophie nodded, satisfied. Then she said, "Me too." Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed Marcus's hand. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. They sat there until the ice cream was gone, until the sun started to set, until the shop owner came over and politely asked if they wanted anything else. "Just the check," Marcus said. "Actually," the owner said, "it's already been paid. Woman who came in earlier. Said to tell you congratulations on the building." Marcus looked around. Grace was nowhere to be seen. But he smiled. "Thank you." They walked home as the streetlights came on. Sophie ran ahead, chasing fireflies that weren't there. Eleanor walked beside Marcus, her pace slower than it used to be, but steady. "She asked me something today," Eleanor said. "Sophie." "What?" "She asked if I was proud of you." Marcus glanced at his mother. "What did you say?" "I told her I was, that I've always been proud of you even when I didn't show it." Eleanor stopped walking. "I should have said it more, Marcus. I should have said it every day." "You're saying it now. That's what matters." Is it enough?" Marcus thought about all the years of criticism. The comparisons to his father. The feeling that nothing he did was ever good enough. It had hurt. It had shaped him in ways he was still discovering. But he also thought about his mother, standing in his new apartment crying because she was proud. About her flying in for the ceremony without being asked. About the way she looked at Sophie with so much love it practically glowed. "Yeah, Mom, it's enough." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Marcus. I know I don't say it often, but I do. I always have." "I know." He put his arm around her shoulders. "I love you too." They stood there for a moment, watching Sophie spin in circles up ahead, her laughter floating back to them on the evening breeze. Then they walked home together as a family. That night, after Eleanor had gone to bed in the guest room and the apartment was quiet, Marcus sat on the balcony and looked out at the city. The community center was visible from here, a faint glow on the horizon, its lights still on its doors, still open. People were probably still there, exploring, discovering, finding something they needed. Marcus thought about the journey that had brought him here. The loss, the grief, the desperation. The moment he'd almost given up, and the moment he'd decided to stop for a stranger on the side of the road. He'd made that choice without knowing what it would cost him, without knowing what it would give him. He'd made it because it was the right thing to do, because he couldn't live with himself if he'd driven past. That single act of kindness had changed everything. Not because of who Grace turned out to be, not because of the doors she opened or the opportunities she created, but because it reminded Marcus of who he was, who he'd always been underneath the grief and the fear and the desperation. A man who stopped for strangers. A man who helped without expecting anything in return. A man his daughter could be proud of. That was worth more than any job, any building, any success. Sophie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy? Why aren't you sleeping?" "Just thinking, sweetheart. Go back to bed." "Can I sit with you?" "Just for a minute." Marcus patted the chair beside him. "Come here." Sophie curled up next to him, her head against his shoulder. They sat there together looking out at the city lights. "Daddy." "Yeah. Do you think Mommy can see your building? The one you built today?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I think so. I think she can see everything. I bet she's proud of you." "You think?" "I know." Sophie yawned. "She told me." "She told you. In my dream last night. She said you were going to do amazing things, and that I should remind you she loves you, every day." Marcus pulled his daughter closer. Tears were streaming down his face, but he didn't try to hide them. "Thank you for telling me." "You're welcome." Sophie yawned again. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart. I'm glad you stopped for that lady." "Me too. Even though it was hard. Even though you lost things. Even though all of that." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to help people, even when it's hard." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "You already do, Sophie, every single day." "Really? Really, you help me just by being here, by believing in me, by reminding me what matters." Sophie smiled, her eyes drifting closed. "That's easy. You're my daddy. I'll always believe in you." Within minutes, she was asleep. Marcus sat there, holding his daughter, watching the city lights twinkle below, feeling the weight of everything he'd been through, and everything that was still to come. He thought about Maya, about the life they'd planned together, the dreams they'd shared. She was gone now. Nothing would ever change that. But she'd left him the greatest gift anyone could give a daughter who carried her light into the world. A daughter who reminded him every single day that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes shape. He thought about his mother, about all the years of tension and disappointment and words left unsaid. They were finding their way back to each other now, slowly, imperfectly. It wasn't easy, but nothing worth having ever was. He thought about Grace, about the accident of fate that had put them both on that road at the same moment, about the choice he'd made and the choice she'd made in return. Two strangers who'd changed each other's lives by simply being kind. And he thought about all the people he hadn't met yet, the ones who were struggling right now just like he'd struggled, the ones who needed a second chance, the ones who would walk through the doors of the community center tomorrow or next week or next year looking for hope. He would be there for them. He would help them the way he'd been helped. He would pay forward the kindness that had saved his life. Not because he owed anyone, not because he expected anything in return, but because that was who he was, who he'd always been, who his wife had loved, who his daughter believed in, who his mother had finally learned to see. Marcus Chen, architect, father, son. A man who stopped for strangers. The city lights blurred as tears filled his eyes again. But these weren't tears of grief or fear or desperation. They were tears of gratitude. For everything he'd lost and everything he'd found. For the darkness that had almost swallowed him and the light that had pulled him through. He carried Sophie to her bed and tucked her in, just like he did every night. He kissed her forehead and whispered that he loved her. Then he went to his own room and lay down. For the first time in years, he fell asleep without fear, without doubt, without wondering if tomorrow would bring another disaster, another failure, another reason to give up. He fell asleep at peace. Because he knew now that no matter what came next, no matter what challenges or setbacks or heartbreaks waited around the corner, he would face them the same way he'd faced everything else. With kindness, with courage, with the unshakable belief that every person deserves a chance, that every act of compassion matters, that the smallest choices can change everything. Marcus had learned that lesson on a rainy morning on a lonely road when he'd stopped to help a stranger and lost everything, and then found everything again. That was the truth he'd carry with him for the rest of his life, the truth he'd teach his daughter, the truth he'd build into every structure, every program, every life he touched. Kindness is never wasted. Sacrifice is never meaningless. And second chances exist for everyone who has the courage to keep going. Marcus Chen had stopped for a stranger. He had paid the price. And in the end, that single moment of compassion had given him back his career, his family, his purpose, and his peace. Not because the universe rewarded good deeds, but because kindness once planted grows in ways no one can predict. And its harvest lasts forever.